The deal was simple: survive the arena, earn your prize. No one had ever survived. No one had ever earned the prize. But I wasn't just anyone, and my prize wasn't gold or glory. It was a deathworm named Jeff. The crowd was already roaring by the time I stepped into the pit. The air was thick with the scent of blood and burning ozone, the electric hum of containment fields crackling overhead. The arena was older than any empire that ruled over it, a relic from a time when gladiatorial combat was more than just entertainment. It was law. Tonight, I wasn't here for credits or status. I was here to claim something that should have never existed. A deathworm. The announcer's voice boomed through the domed structure, his voice artificially amplified to match the spectacle. Another fool enters the pit. Another corpse to be. Who bets against the newcomer? The audience howled in response, a tidal wave of jeers and laughter. They had no reason to believe I'd last more than a few seconds. My opponent? A beast bred in the deepest, darkest corners of the galaxy. A razor-tail Gormaw standing at 3 meters tall with claws sharp enough to carve through hull plating. It wasn't my first fight in a place like this, but it was the most important. Because if I won, I'd earned the right to claim anything from the arena's vaults. And I wanted the deathworm. A gamble with death. The gates slammed open. The Gormaw lunged, moving faster than something that size had any right to. Its exoskeletal plates glistened under the arena lights, its mouth splitting into 4 jagged mandibles dripping with paralytic venom. It roared, an ear-splitting, primal sound designed to break the will of lesser prey. I wasn't lesser prey. I dove left, rolling under its first strike, feeling the wind of its claws slicing through the air inches from my skull. The crowd gasped. Not dead yet. Good. I came up onto one knee, drawing the only weapon I was allowed. A monoblade, its edge honed to a molecular sharpness. It wouldn't be enough to kill the Gormaw. But I didn't need to kill it. I just needed to win. The Gormaw pivoted, its tail whipping toward me like a spiked battering ram. I barely managed to twist out of the way, the impact shattering the stone floor where I had stood a moment earlier. Dust and debris filled the air. Fight, worm, the announcer cackled. Give us a show. Fine. The Gormaw charged again, and this time I didn't run. I advanced, slipping under its swing and slashing across the tendon-like fibers beneath its arm plates. A bellow of pain. A stumble. It didn't like that. Good. I feinted left, then really moved right, dodging its next strike by millimeters. My blade flicked out again, slicing along the joint of its left leg. The Gormaw howled, its balance shifting, weakening. Time to finish it. I threw myself forward, rolling under its body just as it lunged. With one swift motion, I plunged the monoblade into the soft tissue beneath its chest plating and twisted. The Gormaw spasmed. Then it collapsed, gurgling its last breath. The crowd went silent. Then, like a dam breaking, they erupted. I staggered back, chest heaving, blade dripping. The announcer's voice echoed through the stadium. Astonishing. Impossible. The human has won. I didn't care about their shock. I turned toward the stands where the pit masters controlled the vaults. My prize, I said, voice hoarse but firm. Give me my deathworm. The monster in the cage. The vaults beneath the arena were colder than I'd expected. Industrial lighting buzzed overhead, casting pale illumination over cages, tanks, and containment units filled with horrors that should have never been bred. And in the largest cell, coiled in absolute stillness, was him. Even at rest, the deathworm was massive. 100 meters of sinewy muscle wrapped in bioplated armor, his body shifting ever so slightly with each breath. His head was wedge-shaped, lined with sensory pits that could detect heat, vibration, even the heartbeat of anything within range. His mandibles, serrated and capable of snapping through solid steel, twitched as I stepped closer. A handler, some half-starved alien wearing a shock collar, hovered nervously at my side. This thing is not a pet, he stammered. It's a nightmare-given form. You cannot control it. I smiled. I don't need to control it. I just need it to know me. The handler swallowed hard. You're insane. Maybe. I stepped forward, raising my hand slowly, cautiously. Jeff's massive body shifted, his form tensing. For a moment, the silence was suffocating. Then he moved. Faster than my eyes could track, his massive head lunged forward, stopping just shy of my outstretched palm. His mandibles clicked, tasting the air around me. The handler flinched. I didn't move. Another second passed. Then, thump. The sound of his head gently nudging my palm. The handler nearly fainted. Jeff's breath was warm, his scent a mixture of ozone and something primal. I let my fingers brush against the ridges of his armor. He rumbled, low, deep, almost content. You see, I murmured. Not a nightmare. I let my hand rest against his massive jaw. A friend. A deal with doom. Getting Jeff out of the arena wasn't the hard part. It was what came next. Because I hadn't just claimed a Deathworm. I had stolen something much, much worse. See, the pit masters hadn't created Jeff. They'd found him, sealed away, imprisoned in some forgotten vault from an age when humanity was still figuring out fire. He wasn't just a biological weapon. He was something older. Something meant to stay buried. And the ones who had sealed him away? They were coming back. I barely had time to load Jeff onto my freighter before the alarms started blaring. Ships dropping from orbit. Signatures that didn't match any known faction. The pitmasters panicked. The crowd screamed. The arena's defenses powered up. But it wouldn't matter. Because the entities that had come for Jeff weren't here to negotiate. They were here to erase anyone foolish enough to claim what was theirs. I turned to Jeff, still coiled in the massive cargo hold. He met my gaze, and for the first time I saw something in his eyes. Recognition. Understanding. And something else. Hunger. I grinned. Well, buddy, I muttered as the first explosions rocked the city outside. Looks like dinner's here. And just like that, the Deathworm roared, his first true roar in 1,000 years. Want to know what happens when an ancient terror fights for humanity? Stick around, this is just the beginning. The sky was burning. The ground was shaking. And standing beside me was a monster that had no business being on a leash. This was going to be fun. The first impact hit just outside the docking bay. A thunderous boom rattled the hull of my freighter, sending warning sirens shrieking through the metal corridors. I barely had time to brace before another detonation roared across the city. Unknown vessels detected. My ship's AI barked. Weapons lock incoming, recommend immediate evasive action. Yeah, no kidding. Outside the viewport, the once bustling streets of the arena district were dissolving into chaos. The pit masters were scrambling, their mercenaries turning tail before they could even figure out who they were running from. And above us, blotting out the sky like a swarm of hungry locusts, were the ships of the ones who had come for Jeff. Not sleek warships. Not recognizable fighters. These were things that defied conventional design, jagged and organic, their hulls shifting like living creatures barely constrained by physical form. They pulsed with an eerie light, watching. And then the screaming started. Not from explosions. Not from falling debris. But from the voices of every living creature on the planet. Because the invaders weren't just here to kill us. They were reaching into us, into our minds, pouring their presence into the skulls of every sentient being within range. I staggered back, gritting my teeth against the sudden, overwhelming sensation of something ancient slithering into my thoughts. The weight of countless years, countless lifetimes, pressing against my skull like a vice. Return what is ours. The words weren't spoken. They were imprinted, directly into my brain like a brand seared into the very fabric of my consciousness. Jeff stirred. I turned, my vision still swimming. The Deathworm was coiled in my freighter's cargo bay, his massive, armored body shifting restlessly as the unseen force pressed down on us. But he wasn't panicking. He was listening. And then, he roared. The hunger of an ancient beast. The psychic pressure vanished. Just like that, gone. Outside, the eerie stillness was shattered by a new sound, one far more terrifying than the whispers in my skull. The sound of Jeff moving. The Deathworm uncoiled in a single fluid motion, slamming his body against the freighter's reinforced hull. Metal groaned in protest as he launched himself from the cargo hold, 100 meters of pure muscle and destruction unfurling in midair. I barely had time to dive for cover before he hit the ground. The impact sent a shockwave rippling through the city. Stone shattered. Vehicles flipped end over end like toys caught in a storm. The alien ships hovering above, so untouchable just moments ago, suddenly weren't so untouchable anymore. Jeff lunged. The first enemy vessel never had a chance. One moment it was drifting, its grotesque form pulsing with that unsettling glow. The next, Jeff's massive mandibles snapped shut around it like a bear trap. The ship shrieked. Not an explosion, not metal breaking apart, but a living scream, warping and distorted as its form twisted, cracked. And then it was gone. The sky froze. The other ships hesitated. The crowd, what remained of it, was silent. Jeff turned his massive head toward the nearest invader, his mandibles dripping with whatever passed for the ship's insides. And then, very deliberately, he swallowed. The terror of the invincible. I scrambled to my feet, my mind still trying to catch up with what I'd just witnessed. "What the hell did you just eat, buddy?" I muttered. Jeff rumbled, deep, resonant. A sound I felt more than heard. The remaining alien ships reacted. The hesitation was gone. Whatever they'd been expecting when they came for their prize, it wasn't this. It wasn't him. More ships descended, weapons glowing with the eerie, shifting energy that made my skin crawl. Bolts of raw, unfiltered something lanced down from the heavens, striking the ground in bursts of violent, unnatural light. Buildings melted. The sky rippled. The very air screamed. Jeff didn't flinch. He charged. Have you ever seen 100 meters of bioarmored apex predator move faster than a speeding missile? I have. Jeff hit the second ship midair. His body coiled around it, his plated form constricting like some colossal serpent. The vessel fought, panels peeling away, revealing writhing, tendril-like appendages trying to push him off. It didn't matter. Jeff's mandibles found the ship's core, tore it open and... crunch. Another scream. Another burst of light. Another ship, gone. And that's when the sky ripped open. When gods come calling. The clouds above the city twisted. A swirling vortex of colors that shouldn't exist. Something vast, something wrong, descended from the heavens. Not a ship. A being. It wasn't solid. Not entirely. Its form shifted, warping between countless shapes, wings, tendrils, skeletal hands that reached across dimensions. Its voice wasn't a voice. It was thousands of voices, all whispering in unison, each one layering over the other in an unholy chorus. "You have consumed the flesh of the elders," Jeff growled. The thing, whatever it was, descended. Not fast. Not in a hurry. It didn't need to be. It knew exactly how this was going to end. Or at least it thought it did. I gripped the edge of the freighter's loading ramp, my knuckles white. "Jeff," I said carefully, my voice barely audible over the howling winds. "Tell me you have a plan." The Deathworm didn't answer. He didn't need to. Because the moment the thing fully manifested, Jeff lunged. Not at the creature. Not at its many writhing forms. But at the space around it. His mandibles snapped shut, and suddenly, impossibly, the world broke. Space twisted, folding inward like paper crumpling in on itself. And the thing screamed. Not in anger. Not in rage. But in fear. Because Jeff wasn't just eating it. He was consuming its very existence. Reality convulsed. And for the first time in untold millennia, a god died. The silence that followed was absolute. The remaining ships? Gone. Fled. Vanished without a trace. The sky. Whole again. No more unnatural colors. No more rippling distortions. The city? Well, mostly rubble. And Jeff? Jeff just rumbled contentedly, coiling back up beside my freighter like a satisfied cat after a particularly large meal. I exhaled slowly. Then I turned to him. "Buddy," I said, shaking my head. "We need to have a very long talk about what the hell you really are." Jeff just blinked at me. And then, very deliberately, he burped. "I just watched my pet Deathworm eat a god. Now, I had a bigger problem, figuring out what the hell he actually was, and who else might come looking for him." Jeff burped. A low, deep, reverberating sound that echoed through the ruins of the city like a sonic shockwave. I swore I saw the air ripple. I stood there, staring at him, brain still trying to process what I'd just witnessed. He hadn't just killed that thing. He hadn't just defeated it. He had consumed it. And I wasn't entirely sure what that meant. I took a cautious step forward, my boots crunching over shattered stone. The city was barely recognizable now. Craters, wreckage, the lingering afterglow of whatever eldritch energy had been swirling in the sky moments before. And in the middle of it all was Jeff, curled up like an oversized, armored puppy that had just finished a particularly satisfying meal. The problem was, gods weren't supposed to be meals. And if that thing had come looking for Jeff, how many others would follow? I cleared my throat. "Okay," I said, running a hand through my hair. "I think it's time we had a little chat, buddy." Jeff turned his massive head toward me, mandibles twitching slightly. Yeah, that was the problem. How the hell do you talk to something that eats interdimensional horrors for breakfast? The things that lurk between stars. I sat down on a chunk of broken duracrete and exhaled. "All right, Jeff," I muttered. "Cards on the table. What are you?" He blinked at me. I gestured wildly at the ruined city, at the sky where a rip in reality had just sealed itself shut. "That wasn't a normal fight, pal. That wasn't some random space gang coming after a high-value pet. That was something that shouldn't exist and you ate it. So either you tell me what you are or I start making some really bad assumptions." Jeff just looked at me. Then, after a long pause, he did something that made my skin crawl. He spoke. Not in words. Not in sound. It was something else. A deep, guttural vibration that I felt more than heard, reverberating in my bones, in my mind. Images. Impressions. Not language but understanding. A vision hit me like a freight hauler at full speed. Darkness. Not empty but full. A vast, roiling, endless hunger stretching beyond the limits of comprehension. Not alone. Shapes moving in the void. Others. Beasts of impossible size, lurking at the edges of reality, waiting, always waiting. One breaks free. He's younger, smaller by comparison, but still vast beyond reason. He rides, twisting through the nothingness, devouring things that shouldn't be. Not creatures. Not matter. Concepts. Time. Space. Identity. Then. Chains. Blinding light. Bang. A force beyond description ripping him away, sealing him in something small, contained. A prison. Time passes. Eons. Then suddenly, a world. An arena. Me. The vision snaps. I'm back in the ruins, my breath ragged, my heart pounding. Jeff stares at me. I stare back. You, I whisper. You're not just a pet. Jeff lets out a slow, deep chuff. No, he wasn't. He was something much, much worse. The prison of the Deathworm. I stood up, legs shaking slightly. Okay, I exhaled. So let me get this straight. You're not just some bioengineered monstrosity. You're an ancient, primordial thing that eats, what? Reality? Concepts? And you were locked away. Jeff blinked. I swore his expression was almost amused. I sighed. Of course you were locked away, I muttered. Because apparently, the only thing worse than the things that lurk between the stars is you. Jeff flicked his tail. I started pacing. All right, let's break this down. Someone, something, built a cage for you. And they didn't just dump you in some black hole. They left you in an arena vault. That means someone knew you were there. Someone put you there. And if those things came back looking for you. I trailed off, realization hitting me like a gut punch. This wasn't over. That thing I'd seen, the one Jeff ate, it wasn't alone. It was just the first one to show up. More were coming. Running out of time. I tapped my comm, patching into my freighter's systems. Ship, give me a scan of the sector. Anything incoming? The AI's voice crackled back. Long-range sensors detect multiple unidentified signatures approaching from deep space. Estimated time to arrival, 4 hours. I cursed under my breath. 4 hours. That wasn't a rescue fleet. That wasn't some ragtag group of scavengers looking to pick through the remains of the city. That was a response force. The universe had just realized Jeff was loose. And now, they were coming to put him back in his cage. I turned to Jeff. He was still watching me, still eerily calm. Like none of this surprised him. Like he knew. I exhaled. All right, big guy, I muttered. Looks like we've got two options. We can run, try to get off-world before they show up. Or, I let the sentence hang. Jeff rumbled. And somehow I already knew his answer. No running. Not this time. I nodded. Yeah, I murmured. That's what I thought. I turned back to the freighter, already making a mental list. If we were staying, we needed defenses. We needed a plan. But most of all, we needed to show whoever was coming that Jeff wasn't just some lost relic. He was a god-killer. And we were about to make damn sure the universe remembered why he'd been locked away in the first place. A response force is coming. They think they can put Jeff back in his cage. They have no idea what's waiting for them. Stay tuned, this is about to get messy. They were coming to put Jeff back in his cage. They had no idea that the cage was already gone, and what was inside it had no intention of being caught again. 4 hours. That's how long we had before they arrived. I worked fast. My freighter wasn't built for war, but it wasn't helpless either. I rerouted power to the defense grid, activated every automated turret I had, and set up an emergency launch sequence in case things went south. But deep down, I knew none of it would matter. Not against what was coming. Because these weren't ordinary ships. These were jailers. And they weren't coming for a prisoner. They were coming for a god. Jeff coiled beside me, his massive form shifting with quiet anticipation. He wasn't afraid. Not even slightly. He was waiting. And for the first time, I wondered if he even saw these things as a threat, or as his next meal. The hunters arrive. The first ships blinked into existence at the edge of the system. They didn't warp in. They folded, space itself crumpling like paper, peeling open to reveal obsidian black vessels that shimmered with unnatural energy. They weren't like the ones before. These were designed. Slick. Monolithic. Perfect in their terrifying symmetry. And they came in silence. No broadcasts. No warnings. Just a slow, steady descent toward the ruined city. I clenched my fist. "They're not messing around," I muttered. No posturing. No demands. Just straight to the execution. Jeff didn't move. Didn't react. Until the sky split open. And then, he smiled. Not in any way a creature should. Not in any way something without lips could. But I felt it. A deep, primal amusement rumbling through the air like a storm waiting to break. Because he recognized them. And they recognized him. The last prison. A voice tore through the fabric of reality. Containment protocol engaged. The aberration will be resealed. It wasn't spoken. It was imposed. The sky darkened. The ships hovered, their hulls shifting, unfolding, revealing impossible mechanisms, geometric horrors that should not exist. I saw chains. Not metal. Not energy. Concepts. Words that defined, shifting into shape and binding the air itself. I staggered back, my mind screaming at the sheer wrongness of it. They weren't just trying to capture Jeff. They were trying to rewrite reality around him. To make him not exist. I turned to him, heart pounding. And I saw something I hadn't seen before. Jeff wasn't just watching. He was remembering. The truth of the Deathworm. The moment the chains reached him, Jeff moved. Not fast. Not in a rush. But deliberate. He opened his maw. And swallowed the chains whole. The effect was instantaneous. The sky shattered. The ships wavered, their perfect forms fracturing as something fundamental collapsed inside them. Because the chains weren't just bindings. They were part of the universe itself. And Jeff had just eaten that part of the universe. The ship screamed. Not the mechanical wails of breaking metal. The screams of existence itself. They folded in on themselves, unable to comprehend the impossibility of their own destruction. And then, they were gone. Jeff rumbled, shifting slightly. Not satisfied. Not full. Free. And for the first time I realized something terrifying. He hadn't fought back. Not really. He had let them come. And he had waited. Because this wasn't just a battle. This was revenge. The universe just changed. The silence that followed was deafening. The sky was clear. The city was dust. And Jeff? He turned to me. Waiting. For what? I wasn't sure. I swallowed hard. All right, I exhaled. No more lies. No more half-truths. You were never a pet, were you? Jeff blinked. Slow. Thoughtful. And then, for the first time, I heard his voice. Not anymore. The gods tried to put Jeff back in his cage. Instead, he broke the cage forever. But if the ones who built it are still out there, what else are they hiding? If you want more, you know what to do. Subscribe for the next chapter, because Jeff's story is far from over.